All right, for the stamp project, now that you've made your books, we're going to use this rubber material. It's called Soft Cut. It is a really easy to carve material, and it works really nicely to transfer drawings onto. You can draw directly on this if you prefer, or what I'm going to demonstrate to you is to first create drawings using pencil on paper and to color them in really dark. So I've been using a soft pencil, like a B pencil, or this is actually a 4B pencil. Color in really dark, and then using your bone folder, we can rub on the back of this paper to transfer the drawing right onto the stamp material. So after I've drawn these designs, I'm going to cut them so that I can work with one at a time. And let's just start with this little guy. I'm going to place it up towards the corner of my soft cut so that I don't, use kind of the middle of it, so I can get more efficiency out of it. Now I'm going to take this bone folder, so the design is face down on the soft cut, and I'm just going to rub on the back of the paper. And what should happen is the graphite should transfer off of my drawing down onto the soft cut. Okay, that worked pretty well. It did two things. Transferred my drawing on here, and it transferred it backwards. At this point, I'm going to use my scissors to cut this piece of soft cut off, or if you're careful, you can use a box knife or an X-Acto knife. You can see this stuff cuts really, really easily. Watch your fingers. Now, the cool part here is, unlike a lino block, or a wood block especially, we can cut this into shape. Okay, so if I didn't want it to stay in a square, I could come in here and start to cut this into a more organic or more unique shape. So keep that in mind as you work. Now, I don't throw any of those little scraps away because a lot of times they're usable for things. Little stamps, little mark makers. Okay, but just in those couple of snips now I've got it down pretty close to the skull shape. When we begin to carve, you can use that non-slip mat. But you'll also notice this rubbery material does not slip very easily. And we're going to carve out the non-black areas, so wherever the pencil is not. Okay, really, really easy to carve. In fact, sometimes it's a little too easy to carve. Now you can use both sides of this soft cut. So you don't want to carve so deep that you're going all the way through it. Let's see if I can get this up here for you. Okay. But we can still carve pretty deeply. I gave you two of these pieces, so you got plenty of material to work with. Okay, so I'm going to carve this down. Now I would continue, and it's important that I also carve the outside, right? Because I want the shape of my little skull guy here to be defined. Okay, so we're getting this thing carved down. Just a couple more marks for demonstration purposes. Make sure you're not carving towards your hand. Even though this stuff is easy to carve, it's still possible to cut yourself. Now, if I want to, again, I can take a box knife or an X-Acto and cut even more precisely around my figure. It's a fine way to work. I've got a bunch here that I've made already. Okay, and these have been printed. That's why there's some black on them. I'm about to show you how to print these. You can also get very detailed with them. So this lion guy I really like. And then also just really cool abstract patterns tend to print really nicely. Okay, now you each got a stamp pad, and these are big and they're full of ink. And so before printing on your good materials, try this out on some scrap paper. But what you want to do is, here, let me clear some space. Okay, and we'll get this set up so you can see what's happening here. All right, so I'm going to take my rubber stamp and place it face down, and I need to push on all areas on back of my stamp in order for it to be evenly inked. Okay, there's some ink on it, and now I'm going to push this face down on my paper, and I've got to apply pressure. I'm using my thumbs for this. You're going to notice the stuff squeezes around a little bit. It may blur your stamped image, but there's my stamp image. Okay, this is not a scientific process. You're probably not going to end up with perfection right away. And that's okay. That's why we practice first. So try stamping on one of the stickers that I gave you, one of these circular stickers. See how that looks. Yeah, it's looking pretty cool. Probably even cooler if I were to cut that stamp material into a circle that's about the same size. Here we go. You got a sticker now. Sweet. I really like to print with non-carved material as well, just to create kind of cool textures and patterns. And so I'll push this down, and when I start to print this onto paper, depending on how I use pressure, I can get different kind of mark making. Really cool little shapes. Okay, in addition to that, here I'll do a little bit more with that. So this becomes a little more like drawing, where you're starting to build up a surface that's full of abstract shapes. But you also have natural mark making devices attached to your hand. So a little bit of ink on your finger, and you can make some really sweet fingerprint marks. And again, those can become things that are little drawings. This is all printmaking. We're making images out of something that is transferred onto something else using ink or a liquid material of some kind. Okay, so that's how I want you to be thinking. All right, so transfer a design, draw a design, transfer that design onto your stamp, carve out the white areas using your gouge, and then experiment by printing that onto different surfaces, starting with scrap paper, and then using some of your sticker paper, using your book covers, right? And then the last thing I'll say is, if you do anything with text, so I'm going to carve this word tough into a stamp, anything you do with text has to be backwards on the stamp, okay? Because then we need it to print in reverse so it's right reading. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, have fun with it.